Just gonna update this. 2nd January, it was a natural spawn. 13 February, it was a crossover from like, I think it was 903. 17th, also a crossover. And likewise for 19th. Actually, wait, between 13th, 17th, and 19th, there was one where it didn't cross over from 903, probably from another service. But I'm just gonna put all of them as 903 just for simplicity's sake. And then finally, the most recent spawn, it was natural. So again, for simplicity's sake, those that you see in blue, they spawn around 3:30 p.m. to, I think it's like 4:30 p.m. And then the ones in red, what I would like to call the second sweet spot for spawning, it is anywhere between 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So if it's already past 7:30 p.m. and you don't see any bendy bus spawning on 900, it means that there is no bendy bus on 900 for like the entire day. Because they don't really do AM anymore, it's just confined to PM. Although if you want to narrow down like, the tendencies, I've observed that it is actually 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Like if you want to be safe, you just go there at around 5 or 5:30, like you reach Woodlands ITH. But if you want to know that the actual time that these bendies actually begin to spawn based on like observation and pattern recognition and stuff like that, it is actually like 6:45 to like 7:30 and no later than like 7:30. So just keep the timings in mind. Now let's talk about the off-service timings. It basically means off-service going back to the depot or crossovering to another service like 912B. So what happened was that this one off-service naturally, and so did the rest, and so are the rest. And then on the 13th and on the 17th, they all went to 912B. At around 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. ish, they ended their trips and then they crossed over to 912B, meaning that they only really did 900 for like, let's say 1 to 2 trips. But I think it's just one only. Then for 2024's the very last like Bendy Bus appearance, I forgot it was like late November or like early December, but it was full day. 2nd January, I think off service around 9 p.m. or something along those lines. You just take it as 9 p.m. The most recent one, I am not sure, but the very last trip that I took, let's assume that it's actually the last trip. It's 8:14. So after 8:14, I'm not sure if the bus like even had like subsequent departures, after that. But I definitely caught the bus at 8:14 p.m. I mean, it was my most recent video. This one I remembered clearly. And then these ones, like I said, these ones like crossed over very quickly and they never return. Because once they are on 912B, they just stick to 912B for eternity. And when I mean for eternity, I mean like till the end of day, basically. This one, the 11, I think it off service like really, really quickly. And I think you guys remember that like the one on the 19th was full day. It did 903, it crossed over to 900, and it just stuck there all the way until like, you know, the last bus ish. And this one is technically the rarest in the sense that like the odds of it happening that like it crossed over from another service and then went on to do full day, the 19th one was technically the rarest. It wasn't even like 2024 because this one it was natural. So what you can take away from this is that if the bendy buses like spawn naturally, meaning that they didn't cross over, then I mean usually you can just take it that it'll do 1 to 3 trips and then off service, but technically like typically the natural spawns would have like they have tendencies to run longer than, you know, the ones that cross over. And this one you can say it was really 1 in a million. I don't know if it'll happen again, like basically. So this just goes to show that you can have a natural spawn that off services like relatively quickly. You can have a crossover slot that off services relatively quickly or just, you know, immediately jumps to 912B. You can also have a crossover slot that does full day, like legit full day. So as usual, the evidence is here. You can draw your own conclusions. But the trend is that February, obviously it was an exception, but the trend is that like, and it never really breaks away from this trend for like some reason. Nowadays, the bendy buses on 900, they spawn like once a month, and it is always during PM. And when I mean PM, it's like I talked about the two sweet spots for both the crossover spawns and the natural spawns. Obviously, like I think one of the spawns is probably gonna like break this trend, but again, this is just pattern recognition at this point. So the thing is, it is unpredictable. There is really no way to like accurately predict when a 900 bendy will spawn, but based on pattern observation, you can kind of like tell, guess, deduce when a 900 bendy might possibly spawn when it almost hits like the 1 month mark. And my friends have noticed that like it's usually the same bus captain driving the 900 bendies. Maybe because there is only like one bus captain that's actually like, you know, trained to drive bendy buses that does like 900, like that actually drives bus 900 as in the route. But again, I'm not exactly sure either. Well, in case you're wondering as well, the last one from 2024 was natural. And then everything listed here is year 2025. Just gonna make minor corrections because I forgot the last time. So this time, I will finally remember it. This one, weekday, peak hours only. And then one of them, at least one of them, they would do 180A. So most of them, they off service like when it reaches Boon Lay interchange, like when they end shift. But one of them would do 180A, and they would just off service to like Kranji or like Gali Batu. This one is weekday. I think most of them are like peak only, but there are a few that actually run AP. So I don't know if it's like PM only or like AP, but I'm pretty sure that like 184, there is like at least one AP Bendy bus. 190, same thing, weekday, peak only. Either it's like down route or like 190A, or it does full trip, which is like slightly rarer from like Kampong Baru terminal to Choa Chu Kang. Yeah, and 190, I would just like to caution you, the spawns are like quite random. It's not like fixed. There is a fixed slot, like as per what my friends say, but again, I'm not too like familiar with like the 190 bendy spawns. It's like sometimes it happens, sometimes it like doesn't happen. I'm not sure if like the 190 bendies are like an everyday thing. And I do recall like several instances. I don't know if it's like New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve. I think one of the eves, they actually made the 190 bendies run on weekends. And it wasn't just like one trip or what. No, I think it was actually AP. Again, it is much rarer, but it happens. And then this one, typically on weekends, there would be like, I think around 3. That's normal. Weekdays, there's like fewer because they are on like 180, 184, and then weekends, these two, I mean, including this one, they downsize and then they go over to like 302. But not all of them. Most of them, they will just end up sleeping in depot, but around 2 to 3 basically. And obviously Seletar Depot, it's like, it's the easiest to hunt because every single bendy over here is like, okay, maybe not every single one, but it's like every bus service over here, there would be at least one bendy that runs AP. I mean, like, it's not to say that like every single bendy over here that I'm listing right now would run AP, but at least one out of like these, for like every single service, it would run AP. 800 no longer has any like, crossovers from 807 on weekends. It doesn't happen anymore, but it can still appear as cameos. Talked about this before. Natural. Technically, those on 169 and 969 can be natural as well. But then, I mean, sometimes they can be rigged, which means HRBC drives them. Like, HRBC. Normal bus captains aren't allowed to drive, only the HR can drive, but these two, whenever they happen, it's probably one trip only, and it is definitely rigged. I've talked about 900 just now, the way it spawns, and then these are like the bendies on weekdays. I've talked about this before. They are assigned randomly by allocation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like on their by right perm services like 8026 and 27 being on 913. No, weekdays it is actually just purely by allocation. And this allocation is basically based on projected demand. Sometimes, not every time. Sometimes depends on like how many bus captains are available for the day. Because usually for woodlands, 6 to 8 of the bendy buses, but usually 7 of them out of 10 would actually run on weekdays. I have never like heard of an instance whereby all 10 of them run, like nowadays. And then like I've said before, sometimes if they don't do 913, they also are able to do 964. Like the recent spawn, I think 2 days ago, was like 8027 and 8035, I think. This one is from 911, and then this one is from 913. I've noticed that this 8035 really likes running loose, like away from 911 recently. And then for weekends, typically for 900, the chances of a bendy bus appearing on weekends is like very, very low. 903, 911, 913, yes. Sometimes, not every time, they can run, and I have captured it on camera before, they can actually run on weekends. And then 903, 911, 913, when the bendies actually run on weekends, they would have an increased tendency to use their perm bendy buses as opposed to like them running around by this kind of like allocation. Because I mean, it's just observation. It doesn't necessarily have to be true for every single weekend, Saturday, Sunday, public holiday. I'm just saying that like there is a higher tendency for them to like use their actual perm services. And it's not just 903, 911, and 913. Because even 912, the perms, like 8013, 14, 17, 18, they all have a tendency to stick on 912. Again, it's not fixed for like weekends. And I've told you before that 17 and 18, they love to run around. But 13 and 14, they tend to stick on 912 for some reason. Historically, this wasn't the case, but recently, because of like this random allocation, 17 and 18, they love to run around. But yes, for 912 weekdays, it is subject to this like random allocation, unlike weekends, as I've said before. And I know this is like once a month only, but it is still kind of like a fixed pattern, like a typical spawn, if you would call it. Technically, 964, the bendy buses are more unpredictable than 900, because at least 900 you can say it's once a month, but you cannot say for 964. But because 964 is just way more unpredictable, but when the bendies actually run on 964, it's actually way easier to catch them as opposed to when they run on like 900. Because I mean, recently 2 bendies ran on like 964 instead of 913. But once again, gonna give you the full range of services that the bendy buses from Woodlands Depot are able to run. I mean, Woodlands has these as well, but like when you're talking about from Woodlands Depot alone, it's this one. 902, they don't really like put bendy buses nowadays. Yeah, and this one as well. And I think I better put all the short working trips as well. 911A, it's like single decker, so I don't think that one actually runs bendies. B is more common. A is like it sometimes. So typically, the rarer spawns are like this one, this one, this one. 900 and 964, I would just say it's like uncommon, and these are actually like considerably rarer, I think. So yeah, that's the full range nowadays. I didn't miss out anything, I think.